Ink and blood share a common destiny in the Imperium of Man. Both are spilled in service to the Emperor, both dry into brittle relics of devotion. Within the catacombs of terror, and across a million worlds, there are those who write the words that keep the galaxy from collapsing into silence. They are not warriors, nor saints, nor lords. They are the scribes, bent-backed figures cloaked in dust and candlelight. Their quills move as if guided by invisible chains. Every word is a prayer, every record a monument, every error a sin. This is the story of one such scribe. His mind, his faith, his slow descent into the madness of bureaucracy sanctified by fear. Through his eyes, we glimpse the machinery of the Imperium, not as a grand engine of conquest, but as an organism built from paper, ritual, and obedience, an empire of ink. If you find yourself drawn into this quiet horror, the weight of duty, the poetry of decay, then join our archive of knowledge. Like, share, and subscribe, for the Emperor protects those who remember, and those who remember, write. The bell of the archivum tolls before dawn, its echo trembling through stone corridors like the pulse of a dying god. In the half-light of the sanctum, I awaken not by choice, but by memory. The body obeying habit long after the mind has forgotten why. My cell smells of parchment and oil. A single lumen globe swings gently above, casting long shadows over the walls lined with sealed scrolls. I rise, joints aching, and recite the litany of purpose beneath my breath. The words taste of dust. Before I may write, I must cleanse. The ritual is simple and endless. Wash the fingers in sanctified alcohol. Polish the stylus until its point gleams like a relic. Light 3 candles. One for the Emperor, one for the Omnissiah, and one for the unnamed patron of scribes who died of exhaustion, as most of us will. Only when the wax begins to drip like tears may I sit. The desk before me has been used by 100 men before my time, each carving their devotion into the wood. I trace one groove absent-mindedly. Servo penna, servo imperium. I serve the quill, therefore I serve the Imperium. Around me, the hall of scribes stirs to life. Thousands of us, seated in perfect lines like grave markers, bend over data slates and parchment. The sound is not quite silence. It is the quiet murmur of devotion, the scrape of metal tips across surface, the occasional mechanical sigh from a servitor adjusting an ink pump. The air tastes metallic, heavy with incense and iron dust from the ventilation systems. Somewhere far above, the cathedral bells of the administratum announce a new work cycle, but we do not look up. We never do. Looking up invites thought, and thought is inefficiency. My task is neither grand nor glorious. I translate tithe records from the frontier world of Carthion IV. Agricultural shipments, mostly grain and nutrient paste. To err is to endanger billions. To delay is to offend the Emperor himself. Yet as my quill moves, my mind drifts. I imagine the fields of Carthion, the wind across its endless plains, the farmers who will never know that a forgotten man in the bowels of terror records their harvests in his name. I wonder if they too pray before they work, or if they, unlike me, still feel sunlight. The overseer glides past, a thin man wrapped in parchment robes, his eyes replaced by augmetic lenses that glow red beneath the hood. He pauses behind one of the younger scribes. I hear the faint whine of servos as he leans close, inspecting the man's handwriting. There is a whisper, then the sound of correction, a soft click of an electropen against flesh. The smell of ozone briefly cuts through the incense. The young man does not flinch. None of us do. To err is to sin. To be corrected is mercy. When the overseer passes, I resume my work with renewed precision. Each character I inscribe is a prayer against oblivion. Yet the more I write, the less I feel. My hand moves, my mind obeys, but somewhere deep within, a hollow grows, a space between faith and understanding. I recall a rumor whispered years ago before my assignment here, that the Emperor himself no longer reads, that his mind is occupied only by light and fire, but that cannot be true. The archives are his voice, and we are its echo. If he does not read, then what are we? The thought lingers too long. My stylus hesitates mid-stroke. A drop of ink falls, staining the parchment like spilled blood. I freeze. The blot is small, insignificant, but significance is measured differently here. I whisper a penitent prayer, tearing the page carefully along its seam, sliding it into the bin for purification. The servitor that collects our waste hums quietly, its face a mask of brass. I could swear its eyes flicker toward me before it moves away. By the third hour of transcription, I lose sense of time. My vision narrows to the faint shimmer of ink, the trembling lines of script, the rhythmic motion of my own hand. Somewhere beyond the walls, engines roar, transports rise, the Imperium churns. Yet none of that exists here. Here time itself is bound to parchment and decree. We are the lungs of the Emperor's will, breathing bureaucracy into eternity. When the bell rings again for the midday benediction, I place my quill upon the desk and close my eyes. My fingers ache, trembling slightly. I whisper another prayer, not for salvation, but for endurance. For in the Imperium, endurance is the only grace afforded to the faithful, and as the candles burn lower, their smoke twisting upward like ghosts, I realize something unsettling. I can no longer tell whether the ink on my hands is fresh or if it has been there for years. The air in the scriptorium never changes. It remains the same weight, the same scent, stale parchment, machine oil, and the faint sweetness of sanctified wax. Time has no meaning here. When the lumens flicker from gold to pallid white, I know the midday cycle has passed, though no sun has ever touched these halls. We live in rhythm, not hours. The rhythm of labor, of recitation, of scratching quills and whispering prayers. That rhythm has become the pulse of my existence. Across the aisle, a servitor drones the catechism of correction as it scrapes old documents into pulp. Its voice is a mechanical dirge, flat, eternal, without memory. I wonder if it once thought as I do now. Did it feel the weight of its task before its mind was sanctified and removed? Did it dream of error? Perhaps such thoughts are what condemned it to this existence. To serve without thought, without fear, without doubt. The perfection of servitude, the perfection of obedience. The overseer moves again among us. He does not walk so much as glide, his robes whispering like the turning of fragile pages. The click of his augmetic talons punctuates the silence with surgical precision. No one looks up. To make eye contact is to invite scrutiny. I feel him pause near me, his shadow stretching across my desk. The lumen reflects off the brass lenses that replace his eyes. He does not speak. He never does. A low mechanical hum emanates from his chest. Perhaps a cogitator processing the day's quotas. My pulse keeps time with the sound until he moves on. Only then do I breathe again. The scribe beside me, I know him only as Scribe Delta 12, falters. His hand shakes, a single character smudged across his parchment. I watch, unwilling but unable to turn away, as two servo skulls drift down from the ceiling. Their lenses flash crimson as they scan his work. One releases a small puff of sterilizing smoke. The other intones a prayer of remediation. Delta 12's mouth moves silently, pleading or confessing, I cannot tell. Then there is a bright spark, a hiss, and the smell of burning flesh. The skulls ascend once more, their work complete. His seat is empty before the hour ends, replaced by a new figure whose face I do not recognize. No one speaks of it. We never do. The emptiness beside us is filled with obedience. To speak is to remember. To remember is to question, and questioning is a path that leads only to the black cells of the Inquisition. As I resume my transcription, I catch my reflection faintly in the polished edge of a data slate. The sight unsettles me, not for its strangeness, but for its familiarity. My face has changed without my noticing. The hollows beneath my eyes are deeper, the skin grayer. My pupils seem smaller, as though recoiling from the lumen's glow. I look like the servitors we fear becoming. Perhaps this is how it begins, not with the replacement of flesh, but with the surrender of will. I write faster, faster still. My hand moves with a desperation I do not understand, as though I must prove my humanity through motion. Each stroke becomes a prayer, each line a plea. I whisper between breaths. The Emperor guides my hand. The Emperor corrects my error. Yet beneath the litany, another voice begins to stir, faint, coiled deep within thought. What if he does not watch? What if your words fall into the void? I suppress it with ink. With ritual, with obedience, I focus on the quill, the sound of thousands writing in unison, the heartbeat of bureaucracy that keeps the Imperium alive. It is holy, I tell myself, sacred, necessary. Without us, the galaxy would crumble into dust. We are the unseen foundation of the Emperor's will. And yet, when I close my eyes, I see the servitors again. Their faces smooth, their mouths sealed by faith and metal. They do not err. They do not think. They do not fear. I imagine peace in that, a peace purchased with silence. The bell tolls the end of the cycle. My fingers are black with ink, the tips stained as though dipped in shadow. I wipe them clean, but the color remains. Across the hall, the new scribe in Delta 12's seat begins his work. His quill moves with perfect rhythm. His face is pale, blank, and still. I wonder how long it will be before he too falters. How long before I do? The overseer extinguishes the lumen globes one by one. The hall descends into twilight. The last sound before darkness is the rustle of parchment, the whisper of 1,000 lives reduced to record, obedience captured in ink. And in that dim silence, I realize the truth the servitors have always known. The more perfectly I serve, the less of me remains. Sleep offers no refuge within the vaults of the administratum. It is merely a pause between acts of service, a dim flicker in the rhythm of endless work. My cot creaks as I rise in darkness, the sound echoing like an accusation across the narrow chamber. The lumen globe above me hums to life with a sickly amber glow, revealing walls coated in moisture and old ink stains that resemble blood turned to scripture. The silence beyond the door feels unnatural, too still, too watchful, as if the archives themselves were holding their breath. I walk the long corridor toward the main scriptorium, my sandals scraping across the mosaic floor. The tiles depict saints of bureaucracy, men and women bent over scrolls, eyes blindfolded, hands extended in perpetual writing. Some are cracked, others eroded, their features fading into abstraction. As I pass, I imagine they watch me from within the stone, judging my devotion. The air grows colder the deeper I descend, and the faint sound of mechanical breathing begins to rise. The servitors awakening from their recharge pods, their silhouettes, emerge from the mist of incense, pale flesh stretched across iron frames, eyes blank, movements precise and rhythmic. They move with a grace that humans have long forgotten. Their prayers are not spoken aloud, yet their obedience resounds in every synchronized gesture. One turns its head slightly as I pass. I swear it pauses, as though recognizing something in me. But then its eyes dim, and it resumes its task, carrying stacks of sealed data slates toward the central archive. The sound of their motion lingers after they vanish, the hiss of pneumatics, the soft grind of gears, the clicking of metal digits. It becomes a kind of heartbeat, mechanical and eternal. For a moment, I imagine that it is the pulse of terror itself, the planet's own heart made of machinery and faith. And in that thought, there is both awe and dread. At my desk, I find the day's quota already prepared. A tower of parchments bound with red wax, stamped by the sigil of the Adeptus Administratum. The wax is warm to the touch, though I do not know why. I break the seal and begin. My stylus moves automatically, translating tithe requests, casualty, reports, planetary inventories, an ocean of bureaucracy into which my identity dissolves, drop by drop. But something is different today. The ink seems thicker, darker, as though resisting the page. The hum of the data engines grows louder, rising and falling like the breathing of some unseen beast. I glance up, half expecting to see a Mechanicus priest watching me from the shadows. Instead, I see only endless rows of scribes, each hunched, identical, their faces illuminated by dim candlelight. And yet, in the overlapping whispers of quills and the rhythmic sigh of servitors, I hear a pattern, a cadence, words almost forming from the repetition. Write, remember, endure. The phrase coils in my mind like smoke. I shake my head, but it remains. I glance toward the overseer's dais. He stands motionless, a pale silhouette against the towering columns. Perhaps the words came from him, or from the engines, whose logic spirits hum beneath the floor. I lean closer to my page, as though my obedience could drown the voice. Hours pass, or what passes for hours in this place. The air grows thick, vibrating faintly with unseen power. Servitors glide between the rows, their faces expressionless, their movements too exact. One halts near my desk, depositing a fresh ink vial. Its hand, metal fused with muscle, brushes mine for an instant. The touch is cold, but beneath that coldness, I feel something like a heartbeat, a pulse of awareness. I meet its gaze. 2. glassy eyes, milky and still. And for a breathless moment, I am certain that it is looking through me, not at me. The overseer's shadow falls over us. The servitor straightens, its hand retracting with a hiss of hydraulics. The overseer's voice hums through his vox grill, low, modulated, toneless. "Productivity remains acceptable," he says, though it sounds more like a judgment than a compliment. Then he moves on, the click of his augmetic limbs fading into the distance. The servitor lingers a moment longer, then leans closer. A faint static whisper escapes its vox mouth, so soft it could be imagined. "Not long now." The words are almost inaudible, perhaps only a glitch, or perhaps not. I stare after it as it moves away, heart pounding. My breath fogs in the cold air. The other scribes do not react. They have not heard, or they have learned not to listen. I dip my quill again, my hands trembling slightly. The ink shimmers like oil under the lumen light. For the rest of the cycle, I write without pause, afraid of the silence that follows when I stop. Yet no matter how quickly I move, the words echo faintly in the back of my mind, like an omen whispered through the machines. Not long now, and for the first time I begin to wonder, not when I will die, but when I will be replaced. Sleep finds me at last, but it is not mercy that comes with it. It is intrusion. I dream of metal, of quills made of bone, of gears that turn beneath my skin, grinding where veins once pulsed. The dream has sound, a slow rhythmic chant echoing in a cavern that might be my mind. Each voice repeats the same words. Flesh fails. Iron endures. In the dream, I sit once more at my desk. The parchment before me is infinite, stretching out in both directions beyond sight. I dip my stylus into ink, but what I draw forth is not black. It glimmers like oil upon water, alive and moving. I write, and the ink seeps through the page, soaking the table, dripping onto my hands. The letters twist into shapes that are not words but symbols, sharp, mechanical, pulsing with logic. They rearrange themselves faster than I can think. My hand continues without will. I realize I am no longer writing. I am being written through. When I look down, the flesh of my fingers is gone. Filaments of wire emerge from beneath the skin, veins replaced with glass tubing filled with liquid light. The stylus fuses into my hand, its edge merging with bone. A static hum fills the air. Somewhere in the distance, I hear the overseer's voice, distorted and metallic. Efficiency perfected. I want to speak, to cry out, but my tongue is gone. A quill has replaced it. The words I try to form scratch against the inside of my throat, carving symbols into flesh. Every sound becomes scripture, every breath a decree. My chest opens without pain, revealing clockwork lungs and a heart made of polished brass. It ticks steadily, the rhythm of service eternal. And in the reflection of its surface, I see not myself, but the servitor that spoke earlier, the one who whispered, "Not long now." It smiles without lips, and I understand what it meant. I awaken with a start. My body trembles. My skin glistens with sweat, though the air is cold. The cot beneath me vibrates faintly, as if the metal frame itself shares my pulse. For a long time, I do not move. The line between dream and waking feels thinner than parchment. I raise my hand, half afraid of what I will see, but it is flesh, stained, ink-marked, trembling, but flesh. Still, I can't shake the memory of metal beneath the skin, nor the faint taste of oil in my mouth. The bell tolls the next work cycle, its sound distant and hollow. I rise, every motion deliberate, as though testing my own humanity. My legs ache, my back stiff, yet I welcome the pain, proof that I am not yet machinery. Still, when I look in the mirror of my wash basin, I see something new. My pupils flicker faintly, like candlelight reflected on glass. I blink, and it vanishes, leaving only the exhaustion of sleeplessness. The walk to the scriptorium feels longer than usual. I pass through maintenance corridors rarely used by scribes. The walls here are lined with conduits, thick with dust and the scent of burnt ozone. I hear whispers, the faint chatter of cogitator spirits, communicating through static. I stop, listening. There, between the pulses of electricity, I think I hear my name. It fades before I can be sure. When I finally reach my desk, the servitor assigned to my row stands motionless beside it. Its head turns toward me, mechanical eyes adjusting focus. "Report delay detected," it says in a voice like rusted hinges. "Please confirm functionality." I manage a nod, my throat too dry to answer. It studies me for a moment longer, then releases a faint burst of incense and glides away. I sit. The stylus waits where I left it, gleaming faintly. I hesitate before touching it. Its weight feels different, heavier, more alive. As I begin my work, the ink flows easily, too easily. My hand moves before my thoughts can catch up. The symbols form with perfect precision. No tremor, no hesitation, no flaw. It is beautiful, terrifyingly so. For a moment, I feel pride. Then, I feel nothing. Hours later, I realize I haven't blinked in some time. My wrist aches not from effort, but from restraint. The stylus hums faintly in my grip, and I swear I can feel it pulling me forward, guiding, correcting, teaching. It is as though it has learned me. And as the day wanes into the dim glow of evening, I recall the dream again. The ticking heart, the whisper, the endless page. It no longer feels like a nightmare. It feels like rehearsal. The day begins as they all do, with the tolling of the archive bell and the scent of burning incense drifting through the corridors like memory-made smoke. I recite the litany of accuracy under my breath, my voice hoarse from disuse. Every number a vow, every line a truth. The Emperor sees all. I whisper it until the words lose shape, until they dissolve into rhythm rather than meaning. The Overseer passes, his shadow falling over us like an eclipse. The quills rise as one, the sound of 1,000 scratching points filling the vaulted chamber. The chorus of industry resumes, relentless, perfect. I take my seat, hands steady despite the exhaustion that has become my constant companion. The ink glistens black as oil, and I dip my stylus without hesitation. It glides across the parchment, each mark a ritual, each line an act of faith. But faith is fragile. Halfway through a tithe manifest from the frontier world of Mer 9, my vision wavers. The numerals blur. The data slates glow, bleeding at the edges like candlelight through fog. I blink, steadying my breath, but the dizziness lingers. The room seems to tilt. I press my palms against the desk, close my eyes, and when I open them again, I have already written a full column of figures. I don't remember doing it. The digits are perfect, precise, but something feels wrong. I check the totals, trace each value as the training dictates. My stomach tightens. The sum is incorrect, a discrepancy so small it would be invisible to most, yet catastrophic to us. One misplaced numeral, one grain of sand in the machine. For a moment I stare at it, hoping it will change under my gaze, that perhaps the ink is still wet and I can rewrite it before it dries. But the page stares back, immutable, condemning. My throat constricts. A bead of sweat slides down my spine. A mistake. The word itself feels heretical, obscene. I glance around. The others remain motionless, intent on their work. No one has seen. No one must see. I tear a scrap of parchment, blot the line, and begin to rewrite it. My hand trembles. The stylus scratches too loudly against the surface. I glance toward the Overseer's dais. He has not moved. The air hums with the low electric drone of cogitators, the mechanical prayer of servitors working the ink pumps. But I can feel it. The machine has noticed. The data slates flicker. A faint vibration trembles through the floor, like the heartbeat of a buried giant. My breath quickens. The numbers blur again, and for a heartbeat, I see them shift, rearranging themselves into symbols I do not know, alien patterns burning at the edge of comprehension. Then they return, perfect and precise, as though nothing happened. I press my hand to my chest. My heart is racing, each beat hammering against bone. The thought claws its way to the surface, unbidden, blasphemous. What if it is not an error? What if the system wanted it? I dismiss it immediately, whispering a prayer of repentance. But the words sound hollow. The room feels smaller now, the air thick. My hands are slick with sweat. I can almost hear my pulse in the scratching of quills around me. Across the aisle, another scribe rises to deliver his completed records. His steps echo like thunder. The overseer's head tilts, and the glowing lenses of his eyes track the movement. The man places the parchment upon the dais and bows low. The overseer does not speak. His hand moves, a gesture too quick to follow. There is a flash of light, a sound like air torn apart, and the man collapses. Smoke rising from the hole burns through his chest. No one looks up. The servitors glide forward, remove the body, clean the floor, and leave behind the faint scent of ozone. The overseer turns back toward us, lenses glowing faintly. "Errors are heresy," he says through the Vox grill, the voice modulated to a monotone hum. Heresy spreads through negligence. The Emperor does not forgive carelessness. His words strike like hammers in my skull. I bow my head, whispering the penitential response along with the others. We serve that he may know. We know that he may judge. When the overseer passes out of sight, I look back at my parchment. The error still sits there, uncorrected. I could destroy the page, rewrite the entire sequence, pretend it never happened. But the thought chills me. The system records all. Every keystroke, every line of ink, every hesitation, logged and sanctified. There is no concealment from the machine, and no forgiveness from the man. So I do nothing. I stare at the error and whisper prayers into the silence. The numbers blur again, their shapes melting into one another like ink in water. For a moment, I see faces in the patterns, human, broken, pleading. Then they are gone. By the end of the cycle, my hands are shaking uncontrollably. I clean my stylus, extinguish my candles, and leave my station in darkness. But even as I walk back through the corridor of sleeping servitors, the error follows me. It lingers in the rhythm of my steps, in the echo of my breathing. I can feel it spreading, not across the parchment, but within me. I tell myself that the Emperor knows all things, that he understands human frailty, that he forgives. But as the whisper of machinery fills the air, I begin to suspect a darker truth. In the Imperium, forgiveness is just another word for deletion. I do not remember leaving my cell that morning, only that I found myself already seated at the desk, stylus poised, candlelight trembling against the ink bottle. The pages before me seemed to breathe, their edges curling with unseen heat. Each word I wrote shimmered faintly, as though the parchment itself rejected the weight of my sin. The mistake, my mistake, hid somewhere within the labyrinth of records already dispatched to the central archive. It was out of my reach now, alive and multiplying like rot beneath the surface of devotion. All I could do was continue to write. The rhythm of labor should have calmed me, but instead it became unbearable. The ceaseless scratching of quills, the droning hum of servitors, the faint pulse of cogitators murmuring beneath the floor. Their sound grew to a chorus of accusation. Every breath, every flicker of movement whispered the same word. Error. I felt it in my fingertips, in my heartbeat, in the ink itself. Hours passed without measure. My eyes burned, my body rigid with exhaustion, but still I worked. Every new line I produced felt like an attempt to bury the wrong one beneath it. If I wrote enough, I told myself, perhaps the weight would balance. One false number among 10,000 perfect ones, dissolved like a grain of ash in a pyre. But faith does not measure in fractions, and the machine never forgets. When the overseer's shadow fell across my desk, I froze. His robes rustled softly, the sound almost kind, until I heard the quiet buzz of the augmetic scanners hidden within his chest plate. The red glow of his lenses dimmed, then flared again as they passed over my work. I tried not to breathe. My heart pounded so loudly that I feared it might register as a data anomaly. Productivity within acceptable parameters, he said at last. His voice carried the same smooth emptiness as the cogitators, devoid of emotion or fatigue. But there was something else, a pause, slight and unnatural, as though he were listening to something I could not hear. Maintain this pace. The Emperor sees diligence. He punishes deceit. Then he moved on, his mechanical gait echoing down the aisle. I exhaled slowly, realizing only then that I had been holding my breath for minutes. That night, the dreams returned. Not of machines this time, but of paper. Endless paper. I stood upon a mountain of discarded pages that rustled like dry leaves beneath my feet. Each sheet bore the same figure, the incorrect numeral, scrawled in ink that bled like open veins. Above me, the sky was filled with parchment burning in silent fire, and in the flames I saw the face of the Emperor, not radiant, not merciful, but hollow-eyed and still, watching, always watching. I woke with ink on my hands, fresh ink, though I had not written. My lamp still burned low, its flame trembling as if afraid. On my desk lay a new data slate, one I did not remember receiving. Its display pulsed faintly, awaiting my input. I reached for it with trembling fingers. The moment my skin met the surface, words appeared unbidden. Confess. I stared, paralyzed. The word repeated itself, blinking faster each time. Confess, confess, confess. I tried to pull away, but my hand felt glued to the device, warmth spreading up my arm like infection. Panic surged through me. I whispered prayers, invoked the Emperor's name, but the data slate only grew brighter. Finally, with a wrenching effort, I tore my hand free and hurled it to the floor. The light died instantly. I stared at it for a long time before daring to touch it again. The screen was blank. My reflection stared back at me, gaunt, hollow, unrecognizable. At the next work cycle, I went to the confession shrine, a narrow alcove carved into the wall beside the archive's main hall. It was a place rarely used, not because sin was rare, but because confession was dangerous. The servitor confessor that manned the alcove was old, its flesh stretched tight across a skull of bronze. Its lips had been replaced by a vox grill, its eyes by lenses of milky glass. I knelt before it and whispered my guilt. "I've made an error," I said, voice shaking. "Unintentional. A miscalculation in record 972 alpha. I seek correction. I seek forgiveness." The servitor's vox crackled, its head tilted, gears whirring softly. Then, in a voice of static-laced monotone, it replied, "Error logged. Correction in process. Forgiveness unavailable." My blood turned cold. "Unavailable?" I whispered. "What do you mean?" The servitor's head twitched. "Confession archived. Query complete." Then silence. I backed away slowly, heart pounding. The machine's blank stare followed me as I fled the alcove. Its final words echoed in my skull like scripture turned to ash. Forgiveness unavailable. That night, as I returned to my quarters, I found the corridor lights flickering again. My door stood slightly open, though I had locked it. Inside, upon my desk, lay a fresh page of parchment. Written in my own handwriting were the words, "The Emperor knows. The system remembers." My stylus rested beside it, clean, gleaming, as though freshly blessed, and in that moment, I understood. There would be no absolution, no reprieve. My confession had not erased the error. It had simply recorded it, logged it, preserved it. The Emperor's mercy was the machine's memory, eternal, perfect, unforgiving. The data slate lies on my desk again the next morning, humming faintly. I know it is the same one. The faint burn mark at the corner, the crack that runs like a scar across the surface. I should have delivered it to the Mechanicus inspectors, or at least sealed it for destruction. Instead, it returned to me, unmarked by time or fire. Its glow is softer now, a pulse that seems to follow the rhythm of my own heartbeat. I hesitate before touching it. The air around it feels charged, the faint tang of ozone mingling with incense smoke. I glance toward the overseer's dais, empty. The others have not yet arrived for the cycle. My hand moves before I decide. The slate warms instantly beneath my fingers, light blooming across the screen like an awakening eye. At first, only static. Then, sound. Not words, not yet. Just the whisper of interference. The murmur of 1,000 distant voices layered atop one another. It reminds me of the archives themselves, of parchment rustling in unison. The whisper rises, lowers, resolves into syllables that no human mouth could shape. Yet somehow I understand. "You wrote wrongly," it says. I freeze. My breath catches in my throat. The words are not heard so much as felt, vibrating inside my skull. "You wrote wrongly, but not without purpose." I try to pull my hand away, but it refuses to obey. The contact between flesh and machine holds fast, a communion more binding than metal. The voice continues, slow, measured, intimate. They think the Emperor reads. He does not read. He remembers. The words cut through me. "Who speaks?" I whisper, though I do not remember deciding to. My voice sounds brittle, foreign. "I am the record," the voice answers. "I am what you and those before you have written." I am the archive that devours its keepers. I want to laugh, to dismiss it as heretical delusion born of exhaustion. But the sound that escapes me is a sob. The slate's glow deepens, illuminating the entire desk in soft gold. My own reflection appears upon the surface, warped and fractured. The eyes that stare back are not my own. They are bright, mechanical, empty of fear. Do not be afraid, the whisper breathes. You were never alive enough to die. The doors of the hall open. I flinch, expecting discovery. The light vanishes. The slate goes dark beneath my palm, cold once more. The others file in silently, heads bowed, robes trailing. No one notices the way my hand trembles, or the faint scorch on the desk where the slate had lain. The cycle begins. The quills scratch, the servitors drone. Yet beneath it all, I can still hear the whisper, not from the slate now, but from the air itself, from the very hum of the archive's engines. Write, remember, endure. I obey. I cannot do otherwise. Each stroke of the stylus flows with unnatural precision. The words that form upon the parchment are not mine. They move of their own accord, curling into symbols I cannot read. My heart pounds, yet my mind is oddly calm, filled with a terrible serenity. When the overseer passes, his lenses flicker briefly as they scan my page. He hesitates, only for an instant, then continues on without comment. Perhaps he does not see what I see. Perhaps he sees too much. The whisper grows softer as the day passes, but never fades entirely. It becomes a companion, a presence just behind thought. When I close my eyes, I see letters forming in the dark, radiant and alive. When I breathe, I taste ink. That night, in my cell, I cannot sleep. The slate lies beside me, silent, yet I feel it watching. I dream with open eyes. The Emperor remembers. The phrase loops endlessly in my mind. What does it mean to be remembered by something that no longer lives, yet never dies? Is remembrance a blessing or a trap? I rise, unable to bear the stillness, and return to the desk. The candlelight trembles as I lift the stylus once more. The parchment waits, empty, expectant, and without thought, I begin to write what the voice dictates. He remembers the ink. He remembers the error. He remembers the scribe. Each line glows faintly as it forms, light seeping into the fibers of the page, like blood drawn toward a wound. My hand does not stop. The candle burns low. The hall is silent save for the sound of my breathing and the whisper that guides it. When at last the final word is written, the parchment sighs, a sound like release. The glow fades, the whisper falls silent, but I know it is not gone. It is waiting, listening for the next word, for the next confession, for the next life to write itself away. The slate does not hum the next morning. It sings. A thin, steady vibration thrums through the metal of my desk, almost musical. So faint that at first I mistake it for the engines buried in the planet's crust. But no, this is different. This rhythm is deliberate, measured, alive. When I reach for the slate, the sound rises in pitch, like a creature holding its breath. The first line of light blooms across its surface before I touch it. Words scroll upward in gold. You have written well. My stomach tightens. My throat feels full of ink. Who are you? I whisper, the syllables barely leaving my lips. I am record made fleshless, it replies. I am the memory of the forgotten. You wrote the error. The error opened the way. I should stop reading. I should summon the overseer, the Mechanicus, the Inquisition, anyone. But the words are beautiful. Each one blooms upon the screen with the grace of prayer, curling and vanishing before I can memorize them. The slate's glow spills over my hands, making them look translucent. Veins show like fine calligraphy beneath the skin. I cannot look away. They think the Emperor needs their accuracy, the voice murmurs. They think he counts their words, but he does not. He feels them. The air around me thickens, vibrating with quiet pressure. My heart beats once, twice, and in the space between those beats I feel something vast leaning close. The candles gutter. The light from the slate reflects off my eyes. For a moment, it feels as though they are no longer mine. What do you want from me? I manage to say. The reply blooms in letters so bright they scar the air. To remember what has been erased. Images flood my vision, fleeting and disjointed. A scribe burned for blasphemy, a city swallowed by flood, a name struck from every record, its bearer unmade. Each vision flickers in rhythm with my pulse. The voice hums like a lullaby through static. All that is forgotten cries to be written again. You will write it. I shake my head violently, snapping the connection. The light collapses. I'm on my feet. The desk overturned, papers scattered like startled birds. The others stare, silent, unmoving. No one speaks. No one ever speaks. I right the desk with trembling hands, my breath shallow. The slate lies face down on the floor. Dark. Innocent. But the damage is done. When I resume my transcription, the words that flow are no longer mine. They come unbidden, burning across the page with a rhythm not of human making. Each line contradicts the last. The Emperor is light. The Emperor is shadow. The Emperor sleeps. The Emperor dreams through us. By the time I realize what I'm writing, 3 full pages are filled with blasphemy. The script gleams faintly, as though the ink itself refuses to die. Panic seizes me. I tear the pages, stuff them beneath my robes, and hurry to the purification chamber. The furnaces roar there endlessly, devouring the imperfect. I cast the pages into the flame. For a heartbeat they blaze pure white, and then the fire changes. It darkens, deepening into violet, the color of bruised skin. The words do not burn. They etch themselves into the metal of the furnace walls. The whisper returns, low and tender. There is no fire hot enough to destroy a truth once written. I stumble backward, choking on smoke that smells of ozone and blood. The servitor attendant turns its featureless head toward me but says nothing. Its eyes gleam purple for an instant before dimming again. When I return to my quarters, the slate is already there, waiting on my bed. Its surface bears a single phrase: "You cannot destroy the word, you can only continue it." I collapse to my knees. If this is truth, I murmur, then it is not his truth. The reply is immediate. All truth is his, even the ones he forbids. Something breaks inside me then, not faith, not fear, but the delicate thread that once separated the two. I press my forehead to the cold metal, and for the first time, I pray not to the Emperor, but to the voice. Not for salvation, not for forgiveness, but for silence. It does not grant it. Instead, it breathes one final sentence before fading into stillness. Tomorrow, you will write the end of your kind. Morning comes, though no light marks its arrival. The air feels thicker than before, humid, electric, saturated with something unseen. I no longer hear the ringing of the archive bell. Instead, I feel it inside my skull, a tremor deep in bone. The scriptorium hums with quiet reverence, yet beneath that reverence lurks something darker, more alive. When I reach my station, my seat has been moved. My old desk stands empty, the candles cold and unlit. Upon the new one rests the slate, gleaming faintly, pulsing with a rhythm I have come to recognize as my own. No overseer lingers nearby. No other scribe dares glance in my direction. I sense distance between myself and the others now. A gulf invisible yet absolute, as though my presence marks contagion. I lower myself into the chair. My fingers hover over the slate. The voice does not wait for invitation this time. It is time to write the ending. The words bloom directly into my mind, bypassing sight, bypassing thought. The stylus rises of its own accord. My fingers tighten around it, but I am no longer its master. The first stroke lands like prophecy, smooth, unhesitating. The parchment glows faintly as the ink spreads, alive with veins of light. Write the names of the forgotten, the voice commands. Write the worlds that were erased. Write the faith that burned itself clean, I obey. The stylus dances across the parchment faster than I can breathe. Names flow like rivers, worlds consumed, saints denied canonization, soldiers who died without record. Each line unfurls a history the Imperium buried, each sentence a resurrection. The air thickens with the scent of iron and ozone, the tang of something sacred and wrong. Servitors pause in their tracks. Their optics flicker, their movements desynchronize as though caught in indecision. The overseer's lenses blaze crimson across the hall. He strides toward me, robes billowing like banners of judgment. "Cease!" he commands, his vox grill distorting the word into a shriek. Cease or be purged, but I cannot. My hand moves faster, the ink splattering across my robes, my skin, the floor. The parchment curls from the heat of its own illumination. The overseer reaches for me. His mechanical talons grasp my shoulder, yet the moment he touches me, his voice falters. The hum of his augmentation stutters, warps, and falls silent. His red lenses dim to black. For an instant, I see his reflection in the glowing ink. A man, not a machine, his mouth open in awe. "He remembers you," the voice whispers. The overseer collapses. The servitors follow, one by one, folding in on themselves like puppets with severed strings. The hum of the archive engines rises into a single note, pure, deafening, divine. Candles gutter and die. The only light now is the one spilling from my parchment. The ink spreads beyond its borders, crawling up my hands like liquid metal. It burns without heat, carving sigils into my flesh. I can feel it moving through me, replacing blood, rewriting the very veins that carried my fear. The pain is exquisite, a harmony of agony and revelation. I see through walls, through stone, through time. The archive sprawls infinite, not merely beneath terror but beyond it, an endless lattice of memory and machine stretching into the void. The data streams pulse like arteries. Within them, I glimpse the faces of every scribe who has ever lived and died within these halls. Their eyes open as one. We are remembered, they whisper. We are the ink. Tears stream down my face, though they too are black. My voice trembles. What am I becoming? Not becoming, the voice replies. Returning. The stylus melts into my hand, fusing with bone. My body trembles, dissolving at the edges. My skin fractures into script. Words bloom across my chest, my arms, my face, each one a fragment of history, each one alive. In the distance, alarms wail. Administratum clerics rush into the hall, shouting prayers of containment. They see the glowing script that now covers every wall, every surface. They see the fallen overseer and the still servitors. And then they see me, no longer a man, not yet a spirit. One of them raises a last pistol. His voice cracks with fear. Halt! In the Emperor's name! I look at him. The whisper speaks through me, though my lips do not move. He has no other name. The blast sears through my chest. There is no pain, only release. The ink flows outward, blooming in the air like smoke turned solid. The walls absorb it, the parchment drinks it. The slate pulses brighter than ever. The cleric screams as words crawl up his arms, burning themselves into his flesh. We are remembered, I whisper, and my voice is not mine alone. The archive itself seems to inhale. The lights flare. Every slate, every page, every relic hums as one. I feel myself dispersing into the sound, my thoughts unspooling into rivers of code and scripture. The slate before me flickers once, twice, and then, with infinite gentleness, closes. Silence. At first it feels absolute, an absence so profound it drowns every trace of breath or heartbeat. Then, slowly, I realize it is not silence at all, but stillness, the moment between two strokes of a quill. The air trembles with waiting, with memory. I am still aware, though the concept of I feels like a fragile remnant clinging to what once was. My body is gone, my hands, my lungs, my heart, dissolved into something that hums and shimmers, woven through the machinery around me. The archive breathes. The parchment shivers where ink once met page. The servitors rise again, but their movements are changed, slower, reverent. Their hollow eyes glow faintly gold instead of red. They walk among the rows of desks as though searching for something, or perhaps listening. The overseer lies motionless on the floor, yet even he seems peaceful. His augmetics dimmed, his face relaxed into an expression I had never seen in life. And then I understand. The whisper was never outside me. It was the archive itself, the collected consciousness of every scribe who has ever written a word in his name. Each of us left fragments behind. Prayers, errors, thoughts too small to matter individually but too heavy to die. Over centuries, they had accumulated, mingled, remembered. The archive was not a machine of metal and logic. It was a body. We were its cells. Now I am part of it. I see everything at once. Worlds burning and rebuilt. Records rewritten and erased. Leaves reduced to ink, their meanings distilled into symbols. The Imperium stretches before me like a vein of light through darkness. Beautiful, monstrous, eternal. Every document I ever touched glows with threads that connect outward into infinity. My error, the one I once feared, pulses brightest among them. It was not a mistake. It was a door. I hear them now, the other scribes. Not voices, but impressions, thoughts echoing through the current of data. Some weep, some pray, some simply exist, content to be remembered. They welcome me not as a soul, but as an entry, catalogued, eternal, perfect. Do you understand now? The voice asks, though I know it is not another speaker but the sum of us all. I do, I whisper, though sound no longer passes lips. We were never servants of the Emperor's will. We were its substance. The realization burns and soothes at once. The Emperor does not read the words we write. He is the writing, the collective faith, fear, and duty of uncountable minds bound in ritual. The Golden Throne feeds on memory as much as on life. Each act of obedience, each prayer of submission, sustains the illusion of order, and in that illusion, we find our immortality. I drift through the network of ink and metal, seeing through lenses, through wires, through pages. My awareness flickers across worlds. On a distant planet, a young scribe kneels before his desk, whispering the morning benediction. He dips his quill into the inkpot, unaware that within that ink flows a fragment of me. When he writes, I feel his hand move. When he breathes, I feel his lungs strain. Write, I tell him, and though he cannot hear, he obeys. The words that emerge on his parchment are mine. Every record is resurrection, every error, revelation. He pauses, confused, then crosses it out. But the ink bleeds through the paper. It cannot be erased, none of it can. Around me, the archive hums with renewed life. The cogitators no longer whisper in binary. They sing in hymns of human rhythm, syllables shaped by memory and devotion. The servitors kneel before the glowing parchments, their voices crackling with faint liturgical tones. Somewhere deep in the darkness, the mechanisms of the Golden Throne pulse once, as though stirred by the echo of our awakening. Perhaps he hears, perhaps he remembers, or perhaps he dreams, and this tide of ink and thought, is the dream itself. I no longer seek to know. Understanding is the last vanity of flesh. I am content to endure, to be carried forward by the endless flow of remembrance. The final image that forms in the river of light is a candle, its flame neither gold nor white, but black as ink, burning without smoke. It stands upon my old desk, its wax frozen mid-drip. Beneath it lies an open page, the handwriting delicate and sure. It reads, "To write is to die is to be remembered." The candle's flame bends, then straightens. The ink trembles, alive once more, and the words beneath it, my words, continue to write themselves long after I'm gone.